You've announced a strategy day talking about capitals of arts and finance, that sort of thing. How will that work? How will just giving something a badge draw in investment?
Well, we've got a situation in Wales where we risk replicating the situation in the UK, where one part of the state overheats to the detriment of everywhere else. So we want to see power and wealth rebalanced throughout Wales, as we do want to see it throughout these islands. And we believe that the North and the West and Mid Wales haven't received the benefits from devolution that they could see, and we recognise that if Wales is to do well, then all parts of the country must do well.
But is there any evidence that giving places these titles work? Does Liverpool get an awful lot out of being in Hull cities of culture?
I think they do, and if you look at countries like France, where areas and regions are known for their specialities, then that is helpful in terms of economic improvement. So we think that far too much focus has been on one corner of Wales, and a Plaid Cymru government would do all we can to make sure that wealth is rebalanced throughout the country.
As part of that, you want legislation in there to ensure that places like the North get a fair shout of jobs that are coming to us. Can that happen? I mean, can governments really do that?
Yes, they can, and it's about making sure that enshrined in law are government targets for employment and so on, to ensure that regions of Wales do as well as the overall whole. At the moment we see evidence that that is not the case, and other parts of Wales can do so much better with a little bit of support.
So what, I mean, you get a big Japanese corporation decides to invest in Wales and you say, look, you can't go to the M4 corridor, you're not allowed. You have to go to Anglesey.
Well, it wouldn't be as blunt as that. Clearly we want firms to locate to Wales, and they will locate where it's in their interests to go. But in terms of government finance, government investment, we want to make sure that all parts of the country receive the benefits that are available currently to small parts of the country.
Detailed proposals for North Wales today. Are you worried about North Wales? I mean, you've got your number one marginal and your number one target here. You're worried about that?
We're not worried. We're doing very well in those seats that you've talked about, but we've been clear over many years that the anomalous situation whereby the wealth is concentrated in one part of the country does damage to those areas that are not included, and we've said that we don't want to replicate the mistakes of the British state. In building the new Wales, we want to make sure that all people in all communities see the benefits of the country that we're building.
Essentially what you're offering again is spending commitments. You're effectively simply spending the 1.2 billion you say that we want, but everyone else says that we're not going to get.
I don't accept that we're not going to get it. There's every chance that there's going to be a hung parliament, and Plaid Cymru MPs could be crucial in holding the balance of power. And if we are in that situation, then getting parity of resources for Wales, which would result in an additional 1.2 billion into our coffers, would be one of our chief priorities. And we believe that we can deliver that for Wales.
Yeah, the IFS has looked at the manifestos of Labour, Conservatives, Liberal Democrats and the SNP, and talks about a real lack of clarity, and indicates that whatever parties are saying, there are going to be more cuts. If you're to participate in some way in this hung parliament, government, whichever it turns out to be, you're going to have to be talking about cuts as well. You haven't spelled that out at all. Well,
we have. Both Plaid Cymru and the SNP have outlined where we would raise finances from and the kinds of things that we would like to cut. For example, the Trident replacement programme, which would cost £100 billion, is a cut that we would happily make, because that isn't something that would fall on the backs of the poor. But I think that the three main Westminster parties are doing now as they did before the last last election in 2010, and we can all remember the upset that was caused and the disappointment that was caused by the Liberal Democrats backtracking on their tuition fees policy that they weren't upfront about before the election. I don't think it'll do any good for politics or for democracy if parties aren't upfront about what they want to do beyond the election.
You see, in hung parliaments, it can work in two ways, can't it? A party can either come to an agreement where it's prepared to jettison some of its policies and expect the other side to jettison some as well, or it can sell its votes. Which do you want to do?
Well, I think you're talking about a potential coalition arrangement, and I've said that it's unlikely that Plaid Cymru will join in a coalition. We can win for Wales, we think, on a case-by-case basis, working with progressives from other parties in order to deliver the very best deal for Wales. And isn't it interesting that in this election, for possibly the very first time, Wales is on the agenda in a way that we've never been before, and that's down to Plaid Cymru, and it's also down to the cooperation that we will put forward with the SNP and others in order to get the very best deal for Wales.